because it doesn't show the camera until. Oh, okay.
So
So.
I'm saying set it in the right place first.
Oh yeah, but I don't know.
Okay, has it already started now?
Yeah, I think it's.
See, I was trying to avoid that kind of thing.
Yeah, see, because it doesn't show where we are on the camera until I click go live. I wish it would show us beforehand, but YouTube is stupid, so.
Okay, now that we've bashed YouTube, we're going to try to have another podcast.
Hi, everybody.
Okay, this is episode 36, and it's called Categories for Human Beings. And what this is about is we're going to review the plight of those affected by intersex conditions and the pressures of gender stereotypes. And the reason I felt like we were supposed to do this is we've only talked about intersex conditions a little bit, and all you hear out in the world, on the news, in society, is people saying there are only two genders. You're either male or female. And so, since we're constantly hearing this, the only way we can bring some balance to this and bring some understanding to the fact that there are intersex people is to keep talking about it for a while, reviewing, because nobody's going to remember it when they're always hearing all this other stuff. Because no, there are more than two genders, because there are intersex people, intersex conditions that we've talked about before, where people have both male and female chromosomes in one body. And there's other types of intersex conditions where when they're born, they can't tell at first that they have both genitalia, because sometimes the genitalia is not obvious. One part of genitalia could be up inside the body somewhere else. And so all kinds of things can happen. And people can be born with varying degrees of male and female tendencies. And this explains a lot about people who want to become transgender, people who are gay, as opposed to those that are heterosexual, because it determines a lot of times what type of a person people are sexually attracted to, depending on what hormones and chromosomes you happen to have in your body. And that's something that nobody can see until it's examined later in life. And a lot of times doctors don't discover all these intersex conditions until much later, after the child's already been growing, and they wonder why, they're wondering what's going on about certain things. Like there are girls who, aren't starting their periods, so then they get examined and find out they absolutely have no female organs inside. And so there are so many variations of these intersex conditions. And so I felt like we need to review this every so often until it catches on with people, because most people are not aware of this. And a lot of things have not come to the front until recently anyway. But there have been people all over the world growing up that are born in bodies. None of us asked for the kind of body we get. And we're born with it, and then we're told you're either male or female, but then some people really are a combination of both. And it affects a lot of things, and people that aren't that way get judgmental because they don't understand what's going on. Why does that person want to be this sex? Now they want to be a different one. So this really needs to be reinforced a lot. This is important stuff to make sure people understand it, because you don't hear it very often. And all you hear out there is, no, you're one or the other. You're one or the other. You're one or the other. And recently I heard somebody questioning somebody, because you know how some people say, that men can get pregnant. And they were saying, can men really get pregnant? Well, what's funny about that is some people that are intersex, that are both men and women, some of them can't reproduce. Others can, and they can actually get pregnant, even though they're both male and female. So all kinds of odd things can happen that we wouldn't necessarily expect. And we try to stereotype people by what gender they are anyhow. And so we're going to talk quite a bit about that. The fact that people want to be accepted and loved for who they are, not to be known by their body parts or the expectations of others. We have previously talked about intersex conditions that people are born with. This not only includes those with obvious double or ambiguous genitalia, but also hidden differences not immediately identifiable at birth, such as internal organs that contain genitalia of the opposite sex, other than the one identified at birth. Hormonal differences that affect their appearance or variations that sometimes make it impossible to reproduce. And I've already mentioned that. But the certain things affect their appearance where someone may look more like a girl even though they were born a boy, because they have what's called androgen insensitivity. And that means they'll appear as a girl, and everybody expects them to be a girl, even though technically they were born a boy. And so they have a combination of things going on in their body. And then we know of a person who has recently become a Christian, and she actually knows all about the biology of this, of her own condition, because she, majored in biology, and she is an intersex person that has both things going on with her own body. So she knows this, but her church is pressuring her to take the role of a female in every way, and the stereotype of a woman's role just simply because she looks like a woman. And so she's trying to conform to what they want to please them, because they're convincing her that's the only thing that will please God. And so you see what happens when people try to pressure somebody to behave as though they're one or the other, and they already have their ideas of how a woman should act, how a man should act. So that's why I mentioned that we need to talk about these gender stereotypes and how they affect people. Our society has so many conditions on the values placed on human beings, depending on the gender they appear to be identified with. Why are people so obsessed with knowing which category of beings people belong to according to their body parts? Is it important to know someone's anatomy in order to decide how to treat them? Before I go on to my other question, I have one more question, but I think we should discuss this because I'm sure Chastity has a lot to say and a lot of examples about this kind of thing from her own experience as a transgender woman.
Yeah, well, also, the problem really is the roles people put into. That's where the problem really lies. For example, these churches have rules about that only men can be pastors, women can't, and the women can't be teachers of the Bible or whatever. So, for example, the intersex person who has XY chromosomes that looks completely female, are they allowed to preach and teach the Bible in their church or not? Because if they have XY chromosomes, then do they count as man enough to be a teacher, or because they look like a woman, are they excluded from being able to teach? Yeah. That's the question. And see, if we didn't have roles for what men are allowed to do and what women were allowed to do, then whether someone was male, female, or intersex wouldn't matter at all. And
Yeah.
what transgender people have been saying for decades is that's the problem. When they say that gender is a social construct, they're saying it's these social roles where you decide, oh well, that women are supposed to cook and then men are supposed to go kill in war, for example.
Yeah, all these stereotypes of what a man is supposed to be, what a woman's supposed to be, and it affects people in their marriage because they get this idea, well, a man's supposed to do this, a woman's supposed to do that. In society in general, people have attitudes about you if you're one or the other, and expectations of what kind of things you should or should not be doing, what kind of jobs you should be working or not. It goes on and on and on and on. Now, can you give some examples of some things you run into working in grocery stores? And we've talked about this a little bit too before about the bathroom issue.
Yeah, because there was something very specific that happened back when I worked in the floral department at the Independence Hy-Vee. So it was near the end of the day. I was watering the plants and everything before I closed up the shop in the floral department. And this guy comes along and he accused me of using the women's restroom, which I never did anyway. But there was another transgender person at that same store who did. So he was getting us confused. So then he was coming and yelling at me and saying that I don't belong in the women's restroom, which I had never used. And he just came and was verbally attacking me. And then I'm like, what happened? And I couldn't do anything because I was there at the floral department. And so I talked to the HR manager at that store and just explained what happened there, because I explained that first of all I never used the women's restroom because I don't want to make anyone uncomfortable. Plus I've been fine using the men's room all my life, but some transgender people do use the restroom of their choice. But that guy had no right to harass me over what he was assuming I was doing. And the HR guy, he actually agreed with me. He had to have a talk with that guy. But that's just it, is that the bathroom issue is one of those bizarre things that it doesn't just affect transgender intersex people. This affects, single parents, for example, mothers who have little boys. What do they do about that? And dads who have little girls, what do they do? Because I have seen people argue, like on Facebook, people like saying, well, a father should not be allowed to take his daughter into the men's room because there's men in there, but a man is not allowed to go in the women's restroom. So what's a single father and his daughter supposed to do? Some places have family restrooms and some don't. But as somebody who works at a Walmart, when you have one family restroom in a Walmart supercenter, and you're going to have 300 to 400 people in that store at a given moment, especially during the daytime, one little family restroom is not going to be enough. Yeah. And so basically, and like Europe, they don't really have the same problem. Like they have their bathrooms designed differently, because their stall, first of all, their bathrooms have stalls that go all the way to the floor, all the way to the ceiling. No one can peer over the stalls and stuff like that. And then the rooms are connected where they use the same sinks, So it's really, this is an American problem because people want to make it an issue. It doesn't need to be an issue.
Right. Now, I can think of a couple of things. For one thing, with the bathroom stalls, we found out that somebody, we don't know who, but somebody saw someone looking over the stall to look at Chastity to see what part she had.
Yeah.
When she was trying to go to the bathroom.
Yeah.
And why they wanted to know so bad, it's hard to say. But people are so obsessed with finding out who's who, and they ask questions about, their private parts that most people would know not to ask somebody in public about their particular genitals, or like if you're transgender, what did you have done? Do you have fake this, or did you, things that nobody should even ask or think about.
Well, yeah, there was somebody who was asking somebody else about like if they had put anything up their vagina, like why would you ask a coworker that? Like, why would
Yeah.
you do that?
See how
Like,
ridiculous it really is. And didn't somebody get in trouble for going in the women's bathroom or was it the men's bathroom because they looked like a woman, but
well,
they were really a man.
oh, okay. Actually, here's what happened. So we had a manager there who used to be at that store, and she's a woman, but she's very muscular. And she has short hair, so she looked like a man. But she goes in the women's restroom like she's supposed to. But then somebody attacked her, assumed she was a man, just because. Yeah, she might.
Because she kind of looked like one. And then what about these intersex people who happen to look
Mm-hmm.
like the opposite gender
Yep.
because of the features and the way their hormones work and so forth? I mean, it's just ridiculous because people are so obsessed with people and their body parts and knowing everything about them, and people don't feel like people, and they're not accepted for as a person because this is such a big deal. And then we were mentioning about the social roles. Why are rigid social roles for men and boys versus women and girls so important for people to know? Why do we have to have such rigid rules
Mm-hmm.
about the roles that we have, and nobody's being treated like, oh, I'm a person, I'm just a person? And what's a person? Oh, you're either this or you're that. And they won't allow for anything else in between because everybody's supposed to go into a certain role,
Yeah.
or everybody's uncomfortable with it.
Well, it's just like how they had separate bathrooms and separate water fountains for black and white people. And I honestly view the segregation of genders to be just the same segregation of skin color races. Like
Yeah.
that's what it's like to me. See, now here's the thing is they tried to make the same exact arguments back then. Their argument was, well, black people are all criminals and they're a danger to white people, so that's why we have to separate them.
They're all criminals.
Yeah, but they do the same thing to men now, that all men, including trans women, which are not exactly the same as men anyway, that are all a danger to women. So we must keep them separate. It's that same fear that so like this whole category of people, they're all evil. The stereotype of they're all evil.
Like white men are never criminals too.
Right? Which is ironic.
And sometimes women are black or white are criminals too.
Yeah, well, and in this country, since white people are still the majority, the white people are the majority of all good and all evil people because there's just more of them.
Right.
Now,
so,
yeah.
Yeah. So, but people want to be known and loved for who they are.
Mm-hmm.
And this just puts up such a hindrance to be treated as a person.
Mm-hmm.
And that concept just seems to not be there anymore. These divisions between whether you're male or female.
Yeah.
And like, let's talk about kids when they're growing up. They're only allowed to play with certain toys.
Mm-hmm.
Based on whether they're male or female. Well, boys don't play with that, and girls don't play with that. And there's a big old thing about what color the toys are.
Yeah.
And didn't you say that it used to be just the opposite?
Yes.
Boys were allowed to have pink and wear pink, and girls were allowed to only have blue. Then they switched it around.
Yeah, it used to be just the opposite.
And now pink things are for girls and blue things are for boys.
Yeah.
So people get pretty weird about certain things and force kids to be whatever they imagine a boy is or a girl is. And there's all this propaganda about boys and girls that's spreading about how they should grow up, what they should do. It's good for boys have toy guns and pretend to be violent because they need to grow up to be warriors and fierce and girls, oh no, girls just need to have little things like dolls and makeup and little frilly things because they're only girls.
Yeah.
And there's so much emphasis on that. And both boys and girls need to be loved. And they're each one is unique of what talents they have, things they want to do with their life. And when kids are playing, they're preparing for what their natural aptitude is and what they want to be when they grow up.
Yep.
And if you say, no, you can't do that, like they'd say, to be an artist, that's more for girls than boys. And so boys that wanted to be an artist would just get shunned and tried to force to do manly things.
Yeah.
And girls who wanted to take, certain roles in life, well, you can't do that because women and girls don't do that kind of thing. And see how it just completely cuts people off from who they are and who they want to be as they become adults. And they have to overcome all this bias and prejudice against being one thing or another. And parents expect their kids to be one or the other. And usually parents expect them to be whatever they wanted to be, especially if they couldn't do it. Then they want the men want their boys to do the things they always want to do. The women want their girls to do whatever they've always wanted to do. And they force them into that when their talent may lie totally somewhere else.
Well, yeah, and look, for example, at the separation of genders in chess. See, here's what's weird about it is one of the most famous female chess players named Judith Polgar, who has actually beaten several men world champions. See, the reason that she got so good at chess, besides the fact that she was interested, is that her father played chess and he taught it to all three of his daughters, but she was the one who liked it the most. But when he tried to get her entered, officially registered in tournaments and division stuff, the government was trying to get him to only put her in the women's division. But no, I want her to play in the open division where she'll play with men. So, you might as well play with the best to become the best. And basically, since what I found out, because I researched this, like I spent about a month where I was reading everything, I was watching tons of videos on this debate about why the best chess players, the highest rated chess players were all men. And basically, here's what I found out is that they keep the women in their own separate women's league to keep them from being able to compete with the men. So, and then technically, it's not that only men are allowed in the open tournaments, but they still make it very much a boys' club because it's like, oh, well, no, you girls should go in your women's federation here. So they do that so the men's egos are not hurt by losing to women. That's the final answer I came to when I looked at all the evidence.
Yeah.
It was absolutely crazy because men and women and intersex people too, anybody can play chess.
Yeah. But see, we're discriminating against people in so many areas because of how they were born. And sometimes we don't fully know how they were born. We don't always recognize there's an intersex condition until that child starts to develop. And they have both male and female tendencies, and then eventually the doctors will discover it.
Mm-hmm.
But a lot of times the parents are ashamed of it, and they won't explain it to their kids or let the kids talk about it. So then the kid feels really cut off from society. And then people make fun of them because they look like both men and women. And they go through all this stuff where they're not accepted by anybody. And it's really difficult for them to grow up this way and be different in this way. They don't fit in anywhere. And they just want to be loved and accepted. for who they are. They're more and more coming into where they form groups where they get to meet each other and talk to one another. Now, a lot of times they can do it online too and share experiences and encourage each other now when it's becoming more well known about these various intersex conditions and how people are a combination of things. And some of them get married and their husband or wife is just, the average man or woman. But if they love them, they accept them for the way they are. And there's been some people have a really good marriage. And then, like I said, some people are able to reproduce. But I've heard of some that couldn't.
Yep.
Because this one family, they were both intersex, but they ended up adopting a little girl and were completely happy with her. And, they had a real happy family. And so these people are people. And people need to be aware of it. And the more you hear that, oh no, you're one or the other, you're one or the other, you're one or the other, that just makes us totally insensitive to the varieties of people there are. Because we've made up our minds, we got to be judgmental and dogmatic about, nope, you're either a man or a woman. And if you're a man, you do this. And if you're a woman, you do that. And that's that. I hear it all the time. I hear it from preachers about what role a woman should have. And because most preachers are men because they don't want women to preach.
Yep.
The men can get away with saying all kinds of awful things about women and how they're there to please their husbands. Well, that's because they're a man and they want their wife to please them. So they'll talk about all women that way as though they're supposed to please a husband, even if they don't have a husband.
Yeah.
They're supposed to take care of everybody else and wait on them and take care of everybody else's needs just because they're a woman.
Yeah.
There's just a lot of odd things that go on. And if people are discerning enough, they'll see through this and realize, hey, something isn't right. This doesn't ring true. And so because we keep hearing this all the time from our government and all kinds of people criticizing the fact that people are supposedly only one or the other, and that if you're trying to be a man when you were born a woman or a woman when you were born a man, it's like you're just a horrible, horrible person. And people keep hearing that, and then they keep, everybody, even people who mean well, keep hearing it over and over again. They're getting brainwashed to think that way. And we're causing more problems with people all around the world by turning them against people and criminalizing them because they're different than the things we understand. And some people really don't understand, but that's why people need to be educated. And we need to be concerned about how we're treating people anyway. And why do you have to know for sure if someone's a man or woman before you're going to treat them with some kind of respect as a human being?
Yeah.
Why is it so difficult to not just say, there's a person and God loves that person and I will show them love too because they are a human being and they are worth loving. I don't have to know everything about their body parts or how they were born or what roles they play in the world before I can know this is somebody that God loves. And I'm supposed to love them myself and not be so cruel about things.
Yeah. And okay, another thing is people talk about how rare intersex people are. But part of that is because a lot of them are aborted. Because what will happen is the doctors will say, "Oh, well, your baby has a genetic defect. They have a missing or an extra chromosome," and
Yeah,
and
so then they'll abort
so
them.
yeah, doctors often will pressure people and say, "Well, your child's going to have all these problems if you let them be born." But then there's some people who refuse to abort them, and then they find out that their child is maybe different, but they're perfectly healthy anyway. They have a great
Yeah.
life. So it's a bit, so they're not really as rare as people think. It's just a lot of them are killed before.
And then also because they don't always know it right away until they investigate, and there are all these different combinations of chromosomes that cause various conditions. And so even if it was, how many, you said it was like one in how many people?
Now I remember of Klinefelter syndrome I had read years ago, it was 1 in 500.
Okay, Klinefelter, that's one of the more common.
Yeah, that's pretty common.
And that one, okay, that's the one we expect.
Yeah.
That chastity has, but there are variations of it too, because there's like
because there's some people.
There's two X's and one Y.
Yeah, most Klinefelter syndrome have 2 X's and 1 Y, but there's
sometimes there's 3 X's and 3 Y. There's all variations of it, but it's still called Klinefelter syndrome. Yeah. And there are certain features they have that we've noticed that chastity has.
Yeah.
And like the longer arms and various things that we didn't realize, but she's always felt like she was more of a girl than a boy. And yet, I just accepted her the way she was. But see, now that she's trying to be transgender, she has people in her life, particularly men, trying to turn her back into a boy.
Yeah.
By telling her to be all tough and mean and go out and hunt and fish. And we're talking about a vegan who doesn't want to kill animals. And but you're not a real man unless you go out and start killing animals.
Yeah, and trying to recommend John Eldridge's Wild at Heart to me.
Yes.
I listened to the audiobook. It was awful.
I know. and that men should go to war, men should fight, men should kill. It's good for little boys to have guns because they need to learn to shoot guns and, being all tough and mean and mistreating women.
Yeah.
That makes you a real man? Well, see, there's a real problem there, isn't there? I mean, really, think about it, people.
Yeah.
Something isn't right with this whole concept. We need to question it. We need to think about it. We need to be aware that not everything you're hearing today is right.
And also, even for you people who do like to be violent, I got to tell you, this whole idea that you need guns is just propaganda by the National Rifle Association. Because if boys and men want to be violent, they can just beat each other up with their fists. They don't need to buy guns.
And they do that too.
But that doesn't cost any money. You don't have to buy guns or ammo. Like, I'm not advocating violence. I'm just saying you can save money if you do want to be violent.
Well, thanks for your input.
Yeah, I'm trying to be helpful.
You know what? There's always some odd thing that Chastity throws in there. We're talking about very serious things, but she always finds a way to work in her humor in the middle of it too. Well, let's just save money. If we're going to be violent, then just do it a little more cheaply.
Yeah, but the thing is, when you view people as people, you just think of them as people and you try to treat them equally, then you're not all concerned. You're not somebody who's trying to peek over bathroom stalls to see what parts somebody has.
Yeah.
Because that's weird.
And everybody needs to be treated with respect. And that's the problem so many people have. They don't know how to treat other people with respect. And of course, they're being taught not to treat women with respect, but really, they're not even respecting one another as men either.
Yeah.
When they're trying to turn everybody into some tough, mean person, that's why men have a hard time making friends with each other.
Yep.
They haven't learned to communicate. They're used to being cut off and have a stereotype of what a man is, and they don't know how to open up. They're afraid to show their emotions and be a real person. and they hold everything inside, and then that makes them explode, and then they get violent for that reason because they're suppressing their emotions. There's so much wrong with it, and I just really felt like we need to keep reviewing this from time to time because people aren't getting it, because for every time somebody like us tries to point this out, there's so many voices out there saying, oh yeah, you're a man or a woman, so just accept the way you are and just fit into our the role we tell you you got to fit into, and you act like a woman or you act like a man, and they got their own ideas of what that means. So this just was something that we really needed to go back over again and bring it to light again. And yeah, we're trying to get used to this live streaming thing because we used to be able to get situated and then turn the thing on, but now it starts right up.
Yep.
And so that's why I was trying to explain before we started. I said, Chastity, make sure it's lined up before you turn it on. But she didn't understand until after she turned it on, and then we had to still adjust it. So
yeah, I wish it would show you what your camera feed looks like before you get started. It doesn't.
Yeah. So anyway, so that's why we're still adjusting to doing it that way, and why Chastity was bashing YouTube because she was frustrated that.
Yeah.
But we really love YouTube because look, it gives us a chance to do our podcasts, and I learn a lot by using YouTube. So we're gonna try to calm down and get over that eventually here.
Mm-hmm.
Eventually, we'll learn how to do this together and make it work.
All right.
Anyway, is there anything else we need to say about all this?
I don't know.
I have a scripture that's popped into my mind about God doesn't look at the outward appearance like people do.
Mm-hmm.
That He looks at the heart. He looks at the inside in our spirit, what kind of person we are.
Yeah.
Not to judge people on the outside of what they look like and assume they're one kind of a person or another. God sees them who they really are inside. He's not looking at the outer appearance. He's not impressed with people more because they look a certain way. And, we were also talking about these politicians.
Yeah.
You were telling me that people, explain that story.
I actually read this recently. There was a study they did. There were two studies. One they did with children where they took different political candidates from not only America but other countries in the world, and they asked these kids which of these two people won the election, and basically all they had were faces, no names. They didn't know their names, didn't know anything about them. So they basically ended up picking the ones that they thought would win based on how good their face looked. And they found out that those were the same people who had won the elections.
Yeah. So people aren't voting based on their policies or anything. It's how they look.
Yeah, it's based on appearance. And that goes right along with that scripture, because basically people, they look at somebody and they make all these judgments. They make all these assumptions. They assume, well, this person looks like a boy, therefore they play with toy cars and they shoot people with guns and stuff like that. And they look at somebody who looks like a girl, like, oh, well, this person likes to play with Barbie dolls and cook, or they make these assumptions based on appearance.
Yeah.
Yet these assumptions don't always turn out to be true about what that person actually does.
So that's true though too, because I even remember when I was in elementary school during one of the elections, we were supposed to pretend we were voting. They were trying to give us practice of voting. And there were these two candidates, and almost all the kids wanted to vote for one of the candidates, and their whole reason was because it looked better. they were more handsome than the other one.
Mm.
And even as a child, I was thinking, well, why would you want to look? Why would you want to see how handsome they are to know if there's going to be a good president? So, see, even as a child, I did a lot more thinking about things than most other people did. And the other kids were just probably influenced by what their parents were saying, too, of who they wanted to vote for. But they were saying, oh, yeah, the other one's ugly, but that other one looks good. And I won't say the specific names because then you'll know how old I am, which election I'm talking about.
Right.
But yeah, and so, but I remember thinking, oh, well, is that what it's all about? This one looks better. This one's more handsome than the other one.
Yeah.
And it's like, doesn't anybody care what kind of a president they're going to be if they're really going to lead this country right? Even back then, I had a lot of questions about the way adults behaved and the other kids in school, and I'm like, this doesn't seem right.
Yeah, well, and I'll give you one more example of how lookism has ruined the society.
Lookism.
Yeah, that's what I call it. So I watched this little documentary. It was about, there were these rappers who were caught lip syncing, but it was just somebody else's voice because they could not actually sing themselves. See, this producer, he actually had recordings from somebody else who could sing, but he chose these guys to be the actors and dancers because they looked good. So then he was having them lip sync. But then when the recording screwed up and they found out they couldn't sing, the people were mad because they had been deceived. But the point is that they're taking somebody else's talent and then trying to use it with somebody else who looks a certain way. And it's not right because basically what they do is they do this a lot. For example, they will take young women who look good in some way, and they can't sing. So what they do is they digitally alter their voice. They use autotune. They use all this digital stuff to try to make them sound better than they do, and they only choose them because of their looks. And unfortunately, that is true of a lot of people. Now, I'm not saying that all young, attractive women are bad singers, but some of them are, and they were chosen for the looks instead of their voice.
Well, see, I don't like it if women are chosen because of their body for anything.
Right. Even if it
what
works.
About what else they want to do with their life?
Mm-hmm.
And then people will decide whether they could work a certain job based on whether they look good. And then usually what they want to do is just flirt with them and sexually harass them when they get them into that job.
Well, and part of the problem is that part of the reason that women do have to put so much effort into their appearance is they're only doing it for survival. Not because they want to, but they know they have to look a certain way because they just to impress somebody, so they'll give them a job. So it's a survival tactic. It's what it is.
And women are pressured
to
have to look a certain way to please men, particularly. So I'm aware of that. I have been all my life, and it's sad, but it's true that our society's still like that, and that everybody's very nosy. They gotta know what you are. They gotta know your body parts. And if they see someone that's stretched in, like, I wonder what they got inside their clothes. Come on, people. Get real. Is that what life is all about? Is knowing what other people have inside their clothes?
Yeah.
Really?
That's a very strange thing.
Yes, it is. It's very strange. And it just shows that how shallow people really are.
Mm-hmm.
So, I don't know. This was just something I felt like we were supposed to talk about. And hopefully it's something that people will take to heart and be aware of as they're hearing all this other stuff out there, that they won't get deceived by that, and they'll be able to realize, oh, there's more going on here. Now, some of the people that are in office that are saying these things, they just really don't know any better.
Yeah.
Some of them mean well, but they think they're doing the right thing, but they don't know any better. That's why people need to learn this stuff.
And I think a lot of the news people are paid that they have to make fun of certain groups of people.
Yeah.
Because that's what I think. Is I think that people are actually being paid to make fun of certain demographics. So the fact that they keep talking about whether it's trans people or immigrants or the Jews or whatever, like somebody's paying them to say these hateful things. That's got to be, because the fact that it all happens from several sources all at once, probably somebody is funding these news stations.
Yeah, and not all the news stations are really telling the truth.
Yeah.
And it's hard. I happen to have learned that the hard way and had to find out which ones I can trust to watch, because most of the time they're telling the truth, whereas some of the others, most of the time, they're lying. And so it's really sad that people can't even get good information and have to continually try to find out what's true and what isn't.
Mm-hmm.
And then people advertise things on there, and they use clickbait to claim something happened that really didn't, just to get people to watch it. And then you watch the thing, and it had nothing to do with what they were claiming.
Yeah, I don't even know what commercials are trying to advertise anymore. I get so confused.
But I mean, I've got like commercial free on YouTube, and yet they're always putting things out there.
Yeah.
To make it look like something happened, that somebody did something, and they're using AI to change their facial experience. I mean, their facial appearance, and to also make it sound like they're saying things they never said.
Yeah.
And it's not good. It's very deceptive, and it's not harmless to do that. And to accuse people of saying and doing things they never did.
Well, in fact, people are actually making fake videos about transgender people that are not even real.
Mm-hmm.
And like there was even this video, and I think it was meant to be a joke, where supposedly Dylan Mulvaney was interviewed by President Biden at the White House. Supposedly it never actually happened. And if you look at the way this was, it's like somebody had just taken different clips and pieced them together. But the way it was presented as if it actually happened, that was deceptive. And when you're deceiving people, that's never good.
And another thing they can do is they can take little sound bites of that person's voice saying other things, and then put it together in such a way, make it sound like they said something they didn't say.
Yep.
It's amazing the tricks they can do just to deceive people.
And if you don't believe it, you look up Wilford Brimley's Magical Horse, because somebody took this diet commercial about something to help you with diabetes by this actor named Wilford Brimley, and then they changed his words around, edited the audio to where he was talking about a magical horse. Instead
of diabetes.
So the original commercial had nothing about a horse, but they changed the audio so badly.
Yeah, it's too bad people do that, because it's hard enough to find out the truth in this world. But yeah, there's a lot of this going on. But when it comes to gender, and you're going to keep hearing things like that, we need to keep our heads straight and remember the truth and be educated about all the things that can be going on with a person, and just see people as people and treat them the way Jesus wants us to treat people. And that includes, if you think being gay is a sin, even if you think that, does the Bible say you can mistreat anybody? Doesn't it say to love everybody, including sinners?
Yeah, I mean, Jesus didn't say love your neighbor only if they have a penis or only if they have a vagina. He never said that.
Well,
said love your neighbor as yourself. It did not specify that you can only love a specific category of people.
Well, but if you love them as you love yourself, does that mean you can only love them if they're your same gender because you're loving yourself?
Well, first you have to figure out what you are, and therein lies the hardest part.
Well, for you, I know that's hard for you for sure. You have to figure out And sometimes I wonder what you are, but I don't mean male or female.
And I can tell you that's exactly what my experience is like. It's like I feel like I am some kind of hybrid. I feel like I'm a combination of all the things. And so for me it's hard to see somebody as being the same or opposite as me
Yeah.
because I feel like I'm more than one category. That's what it feels like every day.
You're the best of both worlds.
Yep. I'm the next Hannah Montana. And if anybody's watched Hannah Montana, they'll know about that song.
Yeah. Well, I like you the way that you are. And I still love you the same way I did from the start because you're my baby no matter what you are or what combination of things you are. You're still a person and you're a good person and you are loved. And I love anybody that God wants me to love, which is the whole human race. Even people that haven't been very nice to me. God said to love our enemies, not just our friends. So if you think that gay people are bad or transgender people are bad, there's no reason not to love them anyway.
Mm-hmm.
So that's just, once again, a reminder. People need this kind of reminder because there's so much of this. It's okay to hate as long as it's a gay person or transgender person. You can hate them. No, that's not at all what the Bible teaches. And yeah, I know they'll pick out scriptures and try to make it sound like it says it's okay to hate them, but there's nowhere in the Bible says it's okay to hate anybody.
Yeah.
So now you've heard my sermon, even though I'm a woman.
Yeah.
This is the only time I really get to preach.
Also, for those of you who think that you can't listen to a woman, but see, since I'm still half man, I'm man enough to tell you that you have to listen to my mother. So, checkmate.
See what a silly person this is? See, that's another thing God made this person to be, as a comedian. In case you can't tell.
Yep.
He's very entertaining. Anyway, so we hadn't been on for a little while. We've had other things going on, and next week we're going to be celebrating my birthday on the weekend. But after that, we should be able to get back on it and be a little more consistent in getting these podcasts out. So thank you for listening, and hopefully eventually we'll get used to it and you'll get used to being able to participate more and ask any questions or contribute anything you want to contribute on these. But I think in the long run, this way we're doing it now is going to help to do the live streams. So I guess we're going to sign off at that, aren't we?
Yeah.
Okay.
All right. Be excellent to each other and party on, dudes.
Okay.